Hello there. Welcome to our stories during COVID-19. My name is Anne Tannam and I'm a poet and a creative coach. And I'm hoping over the next 15-20 minutes or so to show you some tips and prompts around creative writing at home. Many of us during this time are either working from home or need to spend a lot more time at home. And I'm just hoping we're all keeping safe and well, but also finding ways of keeping our minds and bodies healthy during this rather strange time. And one of the great things about creativity is creativity is so important for our mental health. So apart from being great fun, creative writing, it is also a really, really good way of kind of checking in with ourselves and making sure that we're fine. So I hope that everybody is safe and well. And as we begin looking at ways in which we can kind of find inspiration even as we're at home, just in terms of the writing, we don't have to worry about grammar or punctuation or spelling or any of those things. This is very much an exercise in just relaxing into the fun and enjoyment of writing. So this week's theme is safe at home. And only recently somebody was saying that, you know, how we use language is so important, isn't it? So, you know, sometimes we're thinking we're stuck at home, but if we change that from saying I'm stuck at home to saying I'm safe at home, and even that can make us feel a little bit better about the situation. So if you want to pause the video and go and find yourself something to write with. It can be, if you have a notepad, great. If you have a scrap of paper, that's great. If it's your shopping list, that's great too. Just something that you can write with. Because at the end of the video, I am going to be inviting people to send what they've written into me, because I would love next week to be able to share that with our listeners. So we are, I said, this week it is about being safe at home. And I know when I began writing first, I began writing about 13 years ago. And when I began writing first, I thought that you had to write about really kind of big, exciting things that were happening in the world. And I didn't realize just how important it is to write about where we're at right now. So if you think of it in terms of our houses, what are the things that might inspire us? So I'm just going to start by sharing with you a poem by William Carlos Williams. Really, really simple. This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. That's a really famous poem by William Carlos Williams, and it is so simple, and that's what makes it such a lovely piece of writing. So what I did yesterday was I wandered around the house and I found our own fruit bowl. And as the fellow says, far from avocados, we were reared. But that was what was in the fruit bowl. So with your piece of paper there, just think about what's in your fruit bowl at the moment. And if it's not your fruit bowl, no problem. Just maybe open your press and see what's in your press. What's your favorite fruit, or what's your favorite food? Just think about that. What's your favorite food, or what's your favorite fruit? And then why is it your favorite? And describing the color, the texture, the shape, the taste. So one thing about creative writing, it's really, really helpful if we use all our senses. So in the case of something like describing fruit, it's really great to even take the fruit and give it a sniff and see what does it remind you of, and describing the color. Okay, I'm looking here at the avocado. You know, what shade of green is that? Is it a dark green? Is it a light green? And the texture, you know, if you held the avocado in your hand and you rubbed it with your fingers, what does it feel like? What does it remind you of? And what about the shape? Is it oval? Is it oblong? Is it whatever it is? And then the taste. And of course, if you don't have a fruit bowl and there's chocolate available to you, you could be doing this with chocolate, which would be even nicer. So again, it would just be lovely to just spend a few minutes writing down something about your favorite food and describing the color, the texture, the shape, the taste, and just see what words are popping into your mind when you're writing it. Now we're going to move on to when I was thinking about the being at home, this poem came to my mind by Seamus Heaney, and it's a famous piece, but I thought it really celebrated the domestic. It really celebrated home, so I wanted to share it with you today. When all the others were away at Mass, I was all hers as we peeled potatoes. They broke the silence, let fall one by one, like solder weeping off the soldering iron. Cold comfort set between us, things to share gleaming in a bucket of clean water. And again let fall. Little pleasant splashes from each other's work would bring us to our senses. So while the parish priest at our bedside went hammer and tongs at the prayers for the dying, and some were responding and some were crying, I remembered her head bent towards my head, her breath in mine, our fluent dipping knives, never closer the whole rest of our lives. And if you were looking for another writing prompt, you could read over the poem here. And if there are any words in there that you really liked, you could take them out. And if any of the words in there brought a memory of your own to mind, then maybe you'd like to share that memory, to write that down. I love the word gleaming in a bucket of clean water. That word gleaming I really like. So just have a look and see, are there any words in there that really strike you, or any phrases that you really liked? And you could begin a little bit of your own writing by just taking one of those lines and starting with that. That's another way of kind of getting your own creative writing started. Another thing that many of us have around the house are photographs. And there's nothing like a photograph for bringing back memories. So as I wandered around the house yesterday, in preparation for today's video, I found this photograph. And this is a photograph of my 4 kids when they were young. And they were only really, really small then. And I remembered that seeing this photograph a few years ago had prompted me to write a poem. And the name of that poem is Your Children Are Not Your Children. And so there's just a line from that poem: that the garden sprouts a sandbox in the shape of a green turtle, a slide, a double swing, toys half hidden in the grass. And you can see behind Dara, the young fella's head there, there's the sandbox in the shape of the green turtle. So when I began writing many years ago, I was afraid that I didn't have anything important to say, because I thought that you had to write about kind of big, exciting events in life. And then I discovered that the real joy of writing for me was capturing those very small moments and those memories. So I would invite you to stroll around your house and see, can you find a photograph or something in your house, maybe that you brought back from holidays, and when you look at it, what memories does it bring up, and write those down. And again, that's just a vase from our house, and you can see it's pretty mucky, and that vase came from a holiday many years ago, and I think it was in Spain. We were camping, and when I see that, I have such memories of sunshine and heat, and being inside a very small little room where there were many of these vases, and then carefully choosing that particular one. And one of the hands broke off a good few years ago, so he only has one hand. So you can see that even by a simple object like that, it brings up memories. So I'm just going to invite you to have a wander around your house and see if you can find a photo, or it might be a memento that you have brought back from your holidays or anywhere. And when you look at it, what memories does it bring up? And write those down. And just like we mentioned earlier, in terms of using the 5 senses, it can be really makes our writing kind of come to life if we can use our senses. So if you are looking at a photograph, and it could be a photograph of a loved one who's just beside you, but just looking at it and seeing, closing your eyes and seeing, can you remember a particular incident or a particular day that you spent with them, and try when you're going back into that memory to see, can you remember what the day was like, and can you hear anything, can you taste anything, can you smell anything from the memory. And so the memory that is here, that vase brings up for me, I remember the heat of the sun on the kind of the dusty road, and my flip-flops. So that comes even kind of quite a strong memory. And I remember, the taste when it's really hot, almost the taste of the kind of how parched I was in the back of my throat. And that's what the memories that vase are bringing up for me. So what are the memories have been brought up for you? And even if there's only a word comes out or a phrase comes out, don't worry about it making sense. That's the wonderful thing about creative writing. It's just initially, before we begin to try and kind of pull it together as a poem or as a story, it's really just about catching those snatches, and those little phrases or words that help us to remember. Now, again, I'm not too sure where you are in the city. I really hoping that you're safe and well. And I hope that you do have a view from a window. So this is out my bedroom window. This is what I can see. I can see the tree, the sycamore tree, that's very newly coming into bloom. I can see the red car in my neighbour's drive, and I can see kind of the light blue and grey sky behind it. So what can you see from your window? Have a look out and see. Are there people passing by, or can you see cars, bicycles? If you have a garden, what's growing in your garden? Just describe what you can see from your window. It can be any window in the house. It could be looking out the back. If I look out my attic window here, I can see across the houses of Drimna, across kind of the back. And if I look even further, I can see, I can actually see the Phoenix Park. I can see the monument in the Phoenix Park. So what can you see from your window? One of the things that we know can help us in a time like this, where things are very difficult, and many of us may have been sick ourselves, or may have a loved one who has been sick. So it is a very difficult time, and even for those of us who have remained healthy, we may be feeling quite lonely and isolated. But what can help us is to have something that we're thankful for. So I just had today, I am thankful for this jigsaw that's keeping me occupied and away from the fridge. So we got this jigsaw about a few days ago, and we've all in the house been working on it. And it really has, I've just enjoyed it. When I finished work, being able to sit down and just let my mind focus on something else. So if you could write down what you're grateful for today. And again, you can just be one word, or it can be a sentence, or you can write a paragraph. But what is it that you're grateful for today? And then it's also important to acknowledge what we're missing. So since the lockdown, I miss cycling into the city centre to meet friends. That's one of the big things that I'm missing, because the city centre is just 2 kilometres. It's beyond my 2 kilometre range, so I can't go into town. And I really miss that, because town is such a wonderful place to cycle and to meet people and have a cup of coffee. So what is it you're missing? What are you missing at the moment? And again, it might just be a single word or a sentence, or it could be longer, what you're missing. So we're remembering what we're grateful for, but we're also remembering what it is that we're missing. And when you have written whatever it is you've written, I'd absolutely love to read it and perhaps to share a few lines of it at next week's video. So if you're happy to send in whatever you've written about any of the things that we talked about, and I'll just go back over them again before we finish up. Email them to Anne, ANNE, at creativecoaching.ie. creativecoaching.ie, Anne at creativecoaching.ie. And I would absolutely love to hear what you've written, and I said we can share it then next week. So just to fly back to remind us of what we've done today. We began by just looking at what was all the simple things that are around the house, and in this case we chose fruit, and you were writing about your favorite fruit, or perhaps your favorite food, and we were describing the color and the texture, the taste and the shape. We looked at Seamus Heaney's poem while the others were away at mass, and picked one word perhaps, or a phrase that really struck us, and did some writing around that. We looked at having a look at our houses at a photograph that evoked a memory for us. It could be a photograph, or it could be an object that we brought back from our holidays, or anything that just brings back memories, and writing down those memories and what the memory contains. And then we looked at out our window, what do we see from our window? And then what we're grateful for today, and what we're missing since the lockdown. So I'm going to leave it there, that up, so that people can see it. And I'm really hoping to read out some of your work next week. And in the meantime, stay safe and well, and I look forward to seeing you soon. All the best.